think the question around inclusion, that's a hard one because the diversity in terms of seeing more of the Paralympics on the TV, in various different events, that's one aspect because it's on the TV. But actually, unless you are monitoring and you are tracking how many people are watching, are tuning into the Paralympics like they would tune into the Olympics, I'm not sure you can really get a sense on inclusion. And I think the bridge between actually we're showing it on the TV versus how many people are tuning in to watch it, right? That bridge to inclusion, I think, is largely will require some marketing. So how much marketing do we see? How many advertisements do we see around the Paralympics in comparison to the Olympics? I think we can see more. I think there is more to be done. And I think another measure is if you were to ask people who participate in the Paralympics whether they have this sense of inclusion in global sport, whether it's around Olympic type sports or whether it's around some of the more mainstream sports that we see on TV and the amount of coverage that some of those sporting events, whether it's football or tennis, basketball or whatever, whether some of those events in terms of the coverage that those events get compared to Paralympics, I think there's still more to be done. When you have the ability to take a stage like the Paralympics, and you have the ability to change the perception that some people have just had because we have institutionalized the word normal to being, 2.4 children in a household that may be a white household with able-bodied people, with a mother and a father and a son and a daughter. That is the perception of what we have institutionalized normal to be. So when you can take the stage, and whether it's Black Lives Matter, and you take the stage and you say this is actually the experience of Black people, or whether you're taking the stage as a Paralympian and you're saying this is a snippet of some of the things we can do, it allows other people to get just a little bit closer into believing and challenging that perception that they had in terms of what is normal. The onus is on everyone to be more inclusive. Inclusivity doesn't just start and stop with a big organization. We've got to start, we've got to treat this as part of your DNA in terms of this is just how we should operate, as opposed to I'm going to tick this box because we've had the Paralympics. We need to be far more empathetic and far more unassuming in terms of how we do marketing, how we do labeling for goods and services. And of course, I don't talk about sharing stories lightly. It's a very big onus. It's a big ask for someone to share a personal story about themselves. And the more personal, the more vulnerable you can get, the more you have the ability to connect with that audience, that consumer, or whoever. But it is really important. And I think the power of sharing stories and the impact you can have in sharing stories, for me, is far greater than the fear of sharing a bit of your vulnerability. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah, I think the onus is on everyone, and it's really not a one-off exercise.